Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics. Welcome to the Welcome Home in Summer supplemental videos. We recently launched this beautiful quilt. It's a 10-month block of the month quilt, a celebration of summer. And well, we like to launch our supplemental videos before the program begins. So if you saw that and just assumed that it was too advanced, I'm here to show you today, nothing could be further from the truth. This is totally approachable, even for a beginner, and I'll show you the tips and techniques that we use to make even beginners completely successful. So just like we always do, you're getting a portion of that quilt each month. You're getting your background fabric, prefused laser cut applique shapes, your pattern requirements, and you're on your way. And you continue that process. Then once you have all of your blocks ready to go, we'll have our sashing, some fun patchwork, everything's coming together. Your inner border, your outer border, head that off to the quilter. Maybe you're gonna quilt that yourself and then bind the quilts. But let's talk about how do we have even a beginner be successful with this, or even if you're a skilled advanced quilter, how nice that there are techniques that you can adopt that make applique so much fun. Back in the day, before all of this existed, I was literally buying heat and bond by the entire bolt. I'd go to Joann's Fabrics and bought just the whole bolt because you were going through it so fast. You don't need to buy 1 inch of that because prefused laser cut takes care of all of that. So let's just unpack what you can expect in case this is your first block of the month. What are you going to be receiving each month? By the way, this is the beautiful backing fabric. At the end of this, you're going to want to jump into that program, reserve your spot, your beautiful backing, your thread set, and you'll be definitely wanting some of the notions we'll be covering today. But more, let's go back to the diagram and let's unpack what you're looking at. These things all mean something and they're all to help you be successful. So as you can see, the solid line is really saying that's your background fabric. And notice the shapes drive right into that outer border. So just to kind of show you a little bit in advance where we're going, you will cut your background to the exact size in that pattern. Make sure you've gone ahead and you've ironed everything out nice and flat. Get a fresh blade in your rotary cutter. Make sure you're measuring, twice, cutting once, because you do want to have your background be fitting exactly into this footprint. Why? Because all of the laser shapes that are going to come, including the background, are going to be fitting that just so. So it's very important that background is precisely cut to exactly what's in the pattern. And of course you have this shape right here, right? That's going to be the shape. Sometimes I oversize and leave my backgrounds bigger. I would actually not do that in this case because as you can see, many of these pieces are going exactly to the edge of that fabric. That can just be a little bit confusing when the fabric that's in the background is bigger and the shapes are not extending all the way. So again, I recommend you cut your background to the exact footprint that's shown on that black line that's framing this beautiful block. So let's examine our diagrams. Of course, you'll be getting one each month. The numbers are letting you know which piece goes down first. And of course, our background is really back here, but we're specifically talking about our applique shapes. And we can see that number 1 goes down first, followed by 2, followed by 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. Easy to understand. Dash lines, what's that business all about? That's to help you understand that piece number 7 lies behind piece 22. Any dash line means that portion of that shape is lying behind something else. So that makes sense to us, right? You can imagine that layering, makes sense. Now let's talk about the windows because I'm going to actually start there with you first. So when I designed this project actually some time ago, this is the second time we've done this, I couldn't just have a yellow window. We had to cute that up. And we thought that'd be a lot of fun with Ricrac. So how do we apply Ricrac? So that's what we're going to drive into first. So let me just move these things out of the way and let's just talk about this windows, this Ricrac, and what's all of this all about. So the first thing I'm actually going to do, I'm just going to put this out of the way, and we're going to be using our iron soon. But the first thing we want to do is establish where is the center of this window. Now you could be using a light box, or if you can see through, fine, and I can. I'm just going to, in fact, let me show you I always need more real estate, guys, on the set. So let me just move up, make a little bit of an adjustment here. So you can see that from the overhead camera. I want you to see what I'm seeing. I know that's harder for you to see than what I can see from above. So now you can see that when I lay this down, you can easily see this from above. Hopefully that's not blown out anything. Now I'm not just gonna guess. I wanna use a temporary marker. This is a friction pen, and I'll grab a straight edge. And the first thing I'm going to be doing is just drawing right down the middle of this on my shape of my windows. So I'll just grab any straight edge at this point, line that up, and say that's my midpoint right there. You could also measure the width of your window and simply draw the line halfway, right? Couple ways to get this accomplished. That looks straight to me. So I'm going to draw right down the middle of that. And again, left to right. Right about there. And hold that steady. Right about there. Okay, so let's look at our windows here on our quilt. So you can see there's one line going vertically here, one line going horizontally. So you have some nice rickrac in your kit, and you want to be economical with it. You have enough so that you can cut about 1/2 inch extra on any side that needs to tuck under. So for this, for example, I would just say, well, I'm going to turn that off real quick. This here, I'd say, okay, that's about enough to wrap around to the back, and I trim. We'll do the same thing here. And now on this one, because I only need to wrap the top but not the bottom, come here. Maybe I'll go about there. You might even want to extend that down the bottom just a little bit so we can trim that off with a nice clean, because rickrac frays, boy, I've learned that the hard way. So remember that we've got some paper on the back, and ultimately we will go ahead, and we can even do that now. Might even be easier for us to do that now. We'll get our iron heating up to a medium heat. Now looking at this Unique Stitch, a great product I found actually when I was making bags. I found this easier to apply the glue to the rickrac instead of this background, just because of the footprint of the rickrac. So there's definitely a right and a wrong side. That kind of loftier side is on the top. This is the back side. And so I just kind of dot that in there. We have definitely been using this for bag making. Works great because we were trying to hold a trim in place while we sewed that on, and it just kept sliding around. So we put some Unique Stitch on it. It was the perfect aid. So again, I'm going to have that little bit of that frayed edge kind of just trailing off the edge so I can give a nice clean cut in the end. All right. So you can see how at this point you can just either let's just put all of these on, and then I wrap all at once. I put the top parts on. I think I got a little bit too much glue on that one. I got a little glue happy. I'll do less on this one here. Just spread that around, I think. There are things in crafting that I go just make it work. This is one of them, where you just figure out your way, kind of figure out your technique. Put that in position. Now, I would recommend to just walk away at this point. Just take a break, or now work on the other window, right? Let that dry before you start flipping this thing over and starting to glue this to the back. Remember that we took this paper off and that the back side of this is now got fusible. It's fusible. So if I added any heat to this right now, this is going to glue to my wool pressing mat. Just keep that in your mind. All right, I'm going to try to push it. I'm my usual, trying to push my luck, right? Just because of time. Let's flip this over. I'm seeing a few dots here of glue. Let me just put a little bit of something down here, just some scrap fabric. Okay, so let's bring that back. Again, make it work, impromptu. Now keep in mind that this has the fusible on it. Now, I have tried in the past to just fold the Ricrac over and cover this up with a fusible Applique mat. So again, because if I touch this hot iron to this, they will marry. They will become one. So you most certainly have to cover that up. I have tried to lay this over without the glue and cover this with the Applique mat and hold the iron down. It's not enough. It's not enough contact. You still need some glue. So I've tried that. If you're wondering why doesn't she just activate the glue on the back of the fabric? I've tried that, and again, as I said, it just didn't hold. There wasn't enough contact. So I'm definitely going to add a little bit of glue. And we'll wrap that to the back, and you can hold that. Now, one thing you could do, if you're trying to accelerate that, you could, at this point, put that down, put this on top, and let it sit there. That's definitely going to dry your glue a lot quicker. You might ooze a little bit of the glue out on the Applique mat. That'll dry and peel away. It's not a problem. So you get the idea that this is going to take just a little bit more time, a little bit more fussiness, but the look is worth the time. So I've pressed that down. You can either just hold it or, just like we just did, it worked pretty well. Come back, let the iron sit there 5, 6, 7 seconds, dry, and move on. You get the gist of it, and do the same on the sides. Okay, once you have the windows done, and I recommend you do them ahead of time, so that once you start laying this whole thing out, you can just flow, right? Because notice the windows are number 9 and 15. You don't want to stop and do that then. You want to get that done in advance. All right, let me clean this up just a touch, and then we're going to work on laying our project out, and we're going to be definitely working in sections. So I went ahead and actually turned the light box vertically so that now my entire scene fits in that. So looking at the diagram, you can see that we have our ground piece, our house, right? That is the layering that we did. But remember that we don't have to lay everything out all at once, and we're not going to. You want to take this in manageable sections. So let's look at the quilt and say, okay, I can actually pre-assemble just the flag unit and the pole all by itself. I can pre-assemble the house all by itself. I can pre-assemble just the mailbox as a unit all by itself, and that's exactly what you want to do. There are quilt blocks I have worked on, applique blocks that had over 80 pieces in one block. That is absolutely unmanageable to try to expect yourself to be able to lay out 80 pieces, not move them, not bump them, and they're in the perfect position. That's just not going to happen. So this is a much more manageable way for you to approach a project like this. Now, this isn't so many pieces where you couldn't lay everything out at one time, but why do that? Remember that as soon as we lay out piece number 1, well, let's do that. As soon as we lay out piece number 1, what just happened? I can't see anything below that. That's not helpful right now. What we want to do is pre-assemble our house, pre-assemble our tree, and then we can talk about the ground section. Or we could talk about the ground section first. Doesn't matter. But let's go ahead and pre-assemble the house. It's nice and big. It's easier for you to see. When you pre-assemble sections that are not just you're laying down 1, 2, 3, and 4, it's easy. What's the lowest number in that section? And in this case, it's piece number 4. That's going to be the piece that goes down first. 4, and then the next piece that's going to go down, it looks like, is 6. And then the next piece will be the roof, the door, and then our windows, and then really come the flower box and the flowers, right? So we will assemble that as a unit, and then I'm going to go over to my tree. I have 21 and 22, of course. 21 is going to come down first. 22 will come down next. Our ground will be piece number 1, and then piece number 2, and piece number 3. But remember, the house is piece number 4. You cannot go further at that point than piece number 3, because at that point, and we'll all take you there, the house is going to come on, this is going to come on, the tree is going to come on, and we'll complete the scene. So let's stay together. I'll start off with the pieces, and then we'll probably do a little bit of fast forwarding, because you're gonna get this. It's so intuitive, you're going to completely understand this. Now remember that we can't just bring our shapes. We're going to start with our piece number 4. I can't just bring my shape here, because what's going to happen when I iron that down? And by the way, yes, I have done this. Oops, I forgot to add the applique fusing sheet in the middle of that. That is the barrier that allows the merging of shapes to happen, and I'm going to turn this vertically, the merging of shapes to happen that allows the glue to melt on the applique mat and keeps you from ironing everything down to your diagram. Notice how when I put the applique mat down, my view is greatly diminished. That's why taking this off, if you haven't already done it already, grab your camera. I know you already have that, your phone. Take a photo of that. That's fine. That's for you to just reference what's my next piece. So we have our light box, our diagram, our applique mat, our shapes are ready to go, and we're going to turn our light on. I'm going to turn that a little bit brighter so I can see what I'm doing. So piece number 4 actually is the first piece in this section. Now, something cool about these applique mats is they're very tacky. So as I notice me pushing this down, you're like, why are you doing that? Because there's a tackiness to this. Notice I can't push it out of the way right now. That's helpful. You may have seen applique sheets, which I have used, and they have their purpose, but they are exactly what they say, very slippery. The slightest bump in your shape is moving. There is no grip to those whatsoever. Again, they have an important job in other projects, just not today's project. So that's why I love this mat. There's a tackiness to this that's going to help grip and hold our shapes. Now, if I can't remember what the next shape is, I can always peek, right? And it looks like I've got a chimney up there. Let's put that down. When we were kids, we all remember paint by numbers. Same concept, right? So we went 4, 6. Let's do our roof. This is such a cute fabric. I love plaid, especially when it's on point, right? If you're like me and when plaid is not straight, I go just a little crazy. So that's why I love using a plaid on point. I don't have to worry about it all being fussy cutting my doors. Number 8, fussy cutting my plaid. All right, so if you have a hard time, I just kind of lift that up. Now, if you're at home, and I would do this here if I wasn't on video, I would dim the lights in the room. It just makes your light box be that much more profound, and it's so much easier to see. On the set, we've got a lot of lights, so it's hard for me to see through. And I would absolutely dim those lights so that I have better visibility. So if you're working in a really bright spot, don't be afraid to dim those lights, and you're going to really notice an improvement. Now, the windows, the part that's wrapped around, is going to be at the top. So let's just lay those down. And we'll lay this down. Now, whenever you say, you know what, that's enough shapes for me, I'm going to iron that down at this point, and do it. Now, I like to make sure my windows are at the same height. So one of the things I would do is I would get a larger ruler, and I would measure that they're at the exact same height. That's just me. Just because sometimes I'm worried about one being a little bit lower than the other. Again, if I can't see very well through the light box just because of the studio lights. In fact, we're going to dim the studio lights a little bit better so I have a better chance at this. Okay, so we have our lights dimmed. For now, this is enough for me. So I'm going to iron down what I have so far. The only thing I care about are shapes that merge together. The middle of the roof is not merging to anything yet. Don't feel like you have to iron down the middle of this roof to the applique mat. It's not important. It's important where fabrics overlap and touch. So that's something to think about. Medium heat. Notice I just let go. I've done this where I've hung on to this and accidentally get this kind of movement going. Probably too many years of ironing pilot shirts right on layovers, and I got to have a perfect shirt the next day. That's all been wrinkled up in my bag. And next thing I know, I'm doing this action. So don't just let go. Oh, and let's get that realigned here. I'm just gonna visually check that. I would, of course, take this back and measure, but for today's purpose, I'm just going to kind of take a visual on that because you're understanding the mission here. And it could be my iron just kind of cooled down. So let me get those windows ironed down, and then when I come back, we're going to talk about our little flower boxes, which we might want to do separately. And then again, we'll do our tree, our ground, and then we'll put our whole project together. Now, let's go just do our window boxes and our flowers by themselves. Again, they're separate units we can join in. While this is cooling down, we can just use a different section of this. So we'll get our flowers, our flower box, and our little flowers. And this is where I like to use my tweezers because my fingers get in the way a lot. So we can just take a peek. Flowers are going to go in the back. Of course, flower box. And flowers. I can't see anymore, but again, if you've got that photo, you can reference where do these go approximately. If they're not in the exact position, that's okay. Because no two flower boxes are alike. And we iron that down again. One thing you want to make sure of, I've done this before, I get so excited to take this off because it's exciting to see all of these individual shapes now merge as one. Let this cool down. Like I said, I got excited, I started lifting that up. It was still very warm to the touch, and the things have not cooled. So now things start falling apart, right? It's kind of like when you try to take a cake out too soon and the thing starts falling apart. Same concept. So I can see here, I need to add a little bit more love to just that window, not wanting to secure to the background. And that's because the Ricrac, right, is lifting that up. Makes sense. I don't have the direct flat contact that I do with this. Now, if you want to skip the Ricrac entirely, like that's too fussy for me, no problem. Use the Ricrac for another project, and you can just stitch mullions in the window, even with your sewing machine. This is just an option. You want to skip it, go for it. Okay, I'm going to let that cool down now. I'll go ahead and do my other flower box while we're here. Let that cool down. Okay, while that's heating up, notice I've just peeled that off. All done. Awesome, awesome project. This applique mat, applique diagrams, and the wafer light box, complete game changers. I actually avoided applique for a lot of time. I didn't have the time. I was buying entire bolts of heat and bond, and I was spending days sometimes tracing and cutting and where are my scissors? And I just kind of stopped doing it for a long time. Then I saw actually this process years ago at a trade show. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I just kind of fell. Now I was looking for every applique project I could find because, oh, that's still warm. Because it was just so much fun to do. All right, well, that's cooling down. We don't have to stop. We can go over to our tree, and we're going to do that. The thing that's fun about the wafer light box is it can be dimmer and brighter. A lot of light boxes are either on or off. This can get a lot brighter, a lot dimmer, depending on your preference. So again, we said we're just 2 shapes are all we have here for our tree. I'm just going to put the trunk in. Remember what I said. The only part we care about merging and adding heat to is the union of these. Do I need to heat this? Do I need to heat this? No, don't do it. Don't waste your time or your electricity. And remember that fusible products, fusible webbing of any type cannot take repeated heatings over and over. 5, 6, okay. 10, 12, no. That's a bad idea. It starts to fail. So I have absolutely no reason at this point to iron that down, and I'm not going to. So hopefully that makes sense. So we've done that. We're letting that cool down. This is peeling off. Now let's look at, while that's cooling down, we can see really that our background would come into play. I'm just going to let that cool. And we can decide, are we able to, at this point, because we're looking through a nice light colored fabric, are we able to see where we're going to be going? Or do we need to pre-assemble the bottom portion too? Sometimes I'm able to see through and I don't need to use the Applique mat to do it. Let's see if that's possible. Let's remove that paper. Notice I give a nice confident crease so the paper releases. And I can see that when I lay this piece down, I begin to lose where I can't really see the rest of my pieces. So how do I want to manage this? Well, we do know that this is going to go in this place. So let's start off there. Let's just bring this. We don't even need this mat, right? There's only one place this shape can go, in that corner and in this corner. Just get that done. Okay. At this point, I would put this aside because we already know it's blocking what we need to see down below. Let's remove our tree and our tree trunk. They're now merged as one. So you start to put your shapes kind of off to the side, getting them ready for final assembly. Let's look at this right now. Piece number 2 and piece number 3 really need to kind of lock on underneath that house. Okay, so maybe that's going to come back again, and it is. So let's put our Applique mat actually this way, because this is really a lot of times why you want to use this larger one. You're not having to turn this. It's big enough that no matter what you do, in fact, let's just use it. Let's just use the bigger one, and you can see why I often use both sizes in a project. Just certain blocks that are smaller, I use a smaller mat. Certain blocks that are bigger, I use a bigger mat. All right, here, how lovely is that? This is covering everything, right? So we can see that that piece right there is 2 and 3, and that's going to come underneath that house. So let's put that on here. There's our footprint. And piece number 3 is here. And then piece 4, actually not piece 4, but the house unit. Piece 4 is part of it, but there's many more parts than that. What's the part that we need to heat up right now? Am I going to worry about heating the upper portion of this house? Absolutely not. This union, this place, that's all I care about right now. That's the only part I care about. So as I move this over, this is the only place we need to be, okay? Hold the iron down, our typical 5 to 6 seconds, and now we see there's going to be a piece that actually is going to overlap the corner of that house. So we need to let this cool down. At this point, we're now moving on to our final assembly. We have most of our elements. This is cooling down. So our background's going to come back into play now. So let's turn our light box back on. Brighten that a bit, quite a bit. Get back in our corners where everything is going to begin, the final assembly. All right, so we have a piece here in this corner that's number 5, but remember, I can't do that because piece number 4 is this house. So let's see if this is cooled down. Yep. I would probably let that cool a little bit longer, but I'm going to push my luck today so we can keep moving along. So here comes this on. And we know that our piece is right in the corner, overlapping, just like this. And let's see here. Let's make sure that tree goes right on top. And that is right along the edge. Everything here will be sewn in the seam allowance. Isn't that nice? So let's go iron that down real quick. Just be careful moving it over. And of course, we're just ironing everything down, right? No mystery there. Is that the coolest process ever? Back in the day, as we say, most patterns had only reverse refusible applique. There was no layout diagram. You literally had to first off trace your shapes yourself after you found lots of heat and bond or steam and seam or whatever you're using. Trace the shapes, cut them out. Then you had to use only a photo to figure out where does this stuff actually go? What piece goes down first? And that is why so many people have avoided applique. All of that's changed. Forget all of that. That is back in the day, as they say, and these tools, as I said, and I think you can now see, anybody can follow these steps. Easy peasy, so much fun. Once you have the shapes all the way down, and I'd take a little bit longer to iron those down. Oh, I forgot my flower boxes. Okay, we get the idea. We'd iron our flower boxes down too at the same time, of course. Once everything's down, notice that everything along this edge is going to be sewn in the seam allowance. So when you get ready to stitch everything down with the applique thread, you don't need to stitch along this edge. Don't worry about that. That's going to all be sewn into the seam allowance as we sew all of the blocks together in a row. So you're just sewing what's here, but nothing along the edge. Isn't that so cool? So I'm going to clean up so we can get ready. There's just a little bit of hand embroidery that I did here. We've got some lines here hanging flower baskets. Of course, you got to have a clothesline to have your quilts drying on in the breeze. So we have that there. The antennas on our butterfly. We'll be covering French knots and some backstitch, easy peasy. I'll get cleaned up and I'll be right back and I'll show you the stitch and we'll wrap up our video for today. For the embroidery, you'll take your fabric. Again, you'll have your diagram in the back, your light box. Put this on and you'll be able to see exactly where to draw. And we want to use a temporary marking pen like a friction pen. I'm just going to draw the line and draw a circle. That's really the antenna, right? That's that line and then that knot at the end. Could be anything, could be a straight line. So we're just going to be covering that backstitch and the French knot. The embroidery floss, by the way, is included in your kit. Great news, you don't have to go get that out, as well as the buttons. And those will be going on way later after your quilt is already quilted and your binding is on and you can stitch the beautiful buttons on. But we'll talk about how are we doing this. First off, you'll get 2 strands of embroidery floss. When you pull this out, you're going to have 6 strands are actually in there, and you'll want to pull out just 2 of those. Now, if you like your embroidery lines to be thicker, you can use 3 or 4 or all of it. It depends on how dainty or bulkier you want that to be. This is also a great guide if you want to do a completely different stitch. Maybe you're not going to put the rickrack and you want to do a fancy stitch in those windows. Choose something from here. There's over 180 stitches and is even for left-handed people as well as right-handed diagrams. All right, for the back stitch, we've got 2 strands. I've threaded a Richard Hemming size 4 needle and not at the end. We're going to come up at the very end of our drawn line, and we're going to take some very short stitches, splitting the line each time. You go down, and then we're going to go from the back. We're traveling along that same line, the same distance, that's the goal, and we're going to travel back and go right down where we first came up. And we go down, you get the idea. Very, very straightforward. As tempted as you might be to take some longer stitches, the problem with doing that is notice how these are actually straight lines, right? Straight lines, but we have a curved line we're trying to cover. If you take a big leap, it's going to be here, 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 and look very boxy and not smooth and giving the illusion of a curve. And you simply continue down until you've filled your line. Once that's done, and let's just pretend we're at the end of that line, you simply turn your project over, and you now have embroidery floss on the back. Notice my needle is nice and horizontal, and it's completely on the back. We don't want to come to the front. I'm going to create a loop that I will create a knot with, and notice I'm not yanking on this, or you could pucker this, but I want that to be locked in. So just be a little gentle with that and do it twice. We want to make sure that all of our stitches stay in. Okay, that's how we complete a backstitch. I'll just do a little French knot, a knot right next to it. How are we doing this French knot stuff? Well, if you want a kind of daintier knot, remember I only have 2 strands in here. If you want a bulkier knot, you would maybe get 4 strands or maybe all of this. That might be, it's a little bit harder to thread more thread into a Richard Hemming. And if that's the case, you can always use the clover needle threader. I do that when I bulk up my thread, and I'm just having a hard time getting all of it through. This is a great tool to have, especially if you're using with pearl cotton or anything thicker, even with a bigger eye of a needle. It can be hard to push pearl cotton through, and this helps you with that. All right, so we've established, what if we want to bulk this up and have a bigger knot? Use more strands of embroidery floss. I've got just the 2, so we'll go with that today. The other way we can bulk up a knot is something called wraps. This is how you do a French knot, no matter how many wraps or how many strands of floss you're going to use. You'll hold if you're right-handed, you're going to hold the floss off to the left with the needle in the front, and you're wrapping around that. If you wrap twice, it's going to be a fairly dainty knot. If I wrap 3 times, or 4 times, or 5 times, right, which you could keep going, it's a little more to manage, but that's going to make the knot bigger, so I'm going to undo that. We'll just do 2, so you're going to see what that looks like, 1 and 2. I pivot down, so I'm going right back where I came from, and notice I'm trapping the embroidery floss in my left hand and letting go right at the end. That's pretty dainty. That's too small. I really want that butterfly, kind of that knot at the end, to be bulkier. I could grab more embroidery floss and use 4 strands, or this time let's do 4 wraps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pivot down, so we don't create a mess. You need to kind of walk those down, those wraps down. Hold them, trap this to the left as the needle goes down. And that, notice, this is about twice as bulky as that because I had twice as many wraps. So you can see the embroidery for this is super simple. And again, if you decide, you know what, I don't want to put Ricrac on there. I want to do some backstitching. I want to put the mullions in. If you have any difficulty pushing through those layers of fusible, these new thimbles from the Gypsy Quilter are incredible. One package includes 2 different sizes. I love that because when I'm like, what size do I buy? This works great. Fits beautifully. Your finger's not getting hot. And these are so much better than the old-fashioned metal thimbles that we used to have in our sewing basket. So I wanted to mention that as well. So if you've been waiting to jump into a Block of the Month program, as you can see, this is completely doable, and that these important elements, our wafer light box, our Applifuse mat, our diagrams here at Shabby Fabrics are setting you up for success, and this is absolutely doable. So if you haven't jumped in there, grab a friend, grab your spot, your backing, your thread set, any notions you might need, and I'll see you soon on another Shabby video.